So you call for fire on Mount Suribachi. You see the flag raising. So this is day 4-ish, day 5-ish.
Yes.
Then what?
Well, then we got across the island the first day, really. We cut the island the neck off of the snake.
Yeah.
Our job was to take Mount Suribachi and go right straight across the island. And we got across there and got Mount Suribachi pretty well tamed down. And the third day the flag was raised. I think it was the third day, fourth day the flag was raised. And then we turned to the right and started up to the other end of the island. That was our place to there, and that's when we had some really rough fighting. That's when all those flag raisers lost their lives, or a good share of those guys had bumped off. And,
Right.
and it was fierce because these guys knew that they were never leaving this place, and we weren't about to turn back.
These guys being the Japanese, right?
Yeah,
The Japanese knew they weren't getting off alive.
that's right. And I didn't, every day I didn't expect to see another sunrise. I wasn't mournful or fearful about it because God gave me reals. And my mom was praying me right through that thing. But she sent me a letter and said, boy, and it came over the radio that the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Division had landed on Iwo, and she said they told it was one of the bitterest battles in World War II. She said, I never prayed so hard and long in my life as I did for you that day. And I just didn't see the effect. I could sense the effect of her praying. That was beautiful. So then we had a kamikaze raid just the day before we were going to ship out to go back. We were supposed to go into Okinawa. We were supposed to be a floating reserve in Okinawa, but we didn't have any. We had privates commanding companies, and we just didn't have any the people to do it, and so we had to go back to Hawaii and regroup and take on new personnel and new equipment, and so we headed out for Hawaii that next day. And when we
Before you go there, so we left it at day 5. The whole battle lasts, is it 33 days?
36 days.
36 days.
Yeah.
And I believe you've told me before, it gets a little fuzzy, right?
Yeah.
After about day 5, what happens for the rest of the battle? But you're there. And do you make it to the northern end?
I never did make it to the northern end.
How far north did you guys make it?
I made it well up above the one airstrip there on the left-hand side.
Okay.
And I can remember we were out there one day, and it slacked off in that middle place where there's not much of the real canyons and stuff. And me and another guy were out there with hand grenades, and we were going along, and there's dead Japanese laying all around there, and they were all swollen up, and the smells were terrific. And we were throwing hand grenades down these spider traps. I had no business being out there because one of those guys could have raised up out of a spider trap and knocked us right off like crazy. But I remember we would throw hand grenades in those spider traps and jump back and let them explode. And I don't remember a lot of other stuff there. I just remember K rations is all we had to eat. And I didn't. Eating is normally a time of pleasure. But it wasn't pleasure there to eat because that stuff was so creepy to have to eat that again after a while. And once in a while, somebody was able to swipe a little stuff from the Seabees. Those guys knew how to scrounge up food. Those Seabees always had the best food. And we would get with some friend over there or something, he'd give us some of their food, or we'd just find out where they got it, and we'd slip over there and make a midnight requisition. And so when we got to eating a little bit better, after we got on up the hill there a little ways, it was a real relief. But no, we were down there waiting to get shipped out to go back to Hawaii, and we were sitting there, several of us old wiremen were sitting there on one of the artillery guns, and the old guy that took the picture of the flag raising came by.
Oh, and I cannot think of his name.
I can't either, just blanked out on me just then.
Me too. We'll think of it.
Anyway, he stopped and took a picture of us, and I never did see the picture, only through one of the other guys had a picture of it, and I always wished I could have gotten that. He's dead, and I was going to write to his sister because he gave her my name, and she wrote to me a few times and had kind of a stars on her eyes for me, and I wrote her a few times, but that's all. I ran with a little gal in Los Angeles. She was a Roman Catholic, and I just had always been taught Roman Catholics, you're not to marry a Roman Catholic. And we had a lot of Roman Catholics in our high school and whatnot, and so I always knew that wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And she was a sweetheart, boy. I tell you, I really kind of fell in love with her, but she was out of order as far as I was concerned at that time.
So you're getting towards the end of the 36 days, and you're mustering on the beach. What happened when you were in those tents back on the beach when you were getting ready to muster back to the ships?
Well, the Japanese had their one and only, what do they call it when they make a charge?
Kamikaze.
No, it's airplane.
Bonsai. Excuse me, bonsai.
Bonsai charge. This old general, he didn't believe in that. He thought that's a waste of lives of his soldiers, his men to have it. It's like these old guys used to line up in a string and start running down a hill and straighten the string, and people just, those old, Union soldiers would just pick out the rebels just one by one as they were running down. So he just wouldn't do that. But anyway, the generals persuaded him to have a bonsai charge there, and they come charging down there, and the Seabees and a bunch of airmen were there on the side of the downside of where that one lowest airport, and they were in tents and shelter halves over their foxholes or something like that, and they would just run down there and bayonet through their shelter half and killed about 36 of those guys, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The airmen that were down there waiting to get out of there with their B-29, and Seabees. And the old general was killed there. They don't know whether he was killed by enemy or if he had one of his men shoot him, because he didn't want to be left alive when they were going to be captured. So that was the end of the thing there, and that day we just found our way down to that old LST, and they ran her up there on the beach and had the ramp down and the doors open, and we went ashore that thing and went out to her ship out in the sea there a little ways, and that's when we got on this transport and troop ship and took a shower and had a hot meal. Boy, that was so good. And Then the night before we shipped out, they had us turn in our rifles for some reason. I thought that was a stupid thing because when we heard about this banzai charge, boy, we thought, man alive, and we don't even have a rifle. And I don't know, that was a dumb thing that somebody did. And so we went aboard ship there and immediately shipped right on out to Hawaii and whammed it across to Kwajalein or Eniwetok, I don't know which one, and we let off Ira Hayes and somebody else. They were asked him to come back and help some more on bond drive stuff, and these were two of the guys that raised the flag.
Yeah, I think it was a corpsman too, right?
Yeah, that's John Brady. He was a corpsman.
Right.
And he went back to Wisconsin. He became an undertaker, and his family never knew anything about anything. He never said a word, and they didn't tell till they was unpacking his trunk after he had died to have his funeral. And they found stuff in there and paper clippings and so forth, and people would call him on the phone and he'd say, "Tell him I'm in Alaska hunting." Or "Tell him I'm not at home." And I talked to John Brady's son here in town one day. He was speaking here, and we went to have a book signed by him. And we were in there, me and another guy, and this guy called me and said, "You know, Brady's here with that wrote that book, Flags of Our Fathers. And he's having a book signing at the Tattered Cover. You want to go down?" I said, "Yeah." So he and I went down there, and we were in that crowd, and there was a couple of Marines in there that we knew. And so when the program started, somebody spoke up and said, "You know, you got two Iwo Jima Marines in here. Don't you know John Brady asked us to stand?" And we stood, and then he asked us to say a word or something, and then he signed the book for us, each one of us. I know. I loaned my book to somebody to read, and for the life of me, I don't know who I loaned it to, and it had all those things in it, and Debbie's so disgusted that I loaned with somebody and didn't write it down. And so I'm asking her, this guy I just talked to on the phone and had his knees. I think I loaned it to him, but I'm not sure. But if I did, that'll be a great thing, because I'll see him one of these days soon. He's just right down here at the care center.
Yeah. So back to our story. So the battle wraps up early March. You're back on ship, headed to Hawaii.
Right.
You got to kind of refit and rearm in Hawaii.
My brother was back in Pearl Harbor at that time, and he caught a plane and flew over. We were training out there like crazy, and he said, "Didn't they even give you guys a break?" And I said, "Nope, we're training to invade Japan." He said, "Man alive, I'd think they'd give you a break between these two things." But we were training to hit Japan, and we were on the high seas headed for Japan to be MacArthur's spearhead of MacArthur's 10th Army. And they dropped the bomb while we was going over there, and when we got to Sasebo, we went in there and went ashore there, and there had been a bunch of prisoners back there on Nagasaki that they'd released, and they were down there at that airplane hangar where we stopped, where we landed at this old seaplane hangar, and they were all emaciated, and then some of those crazy sailors on that ship, they went down there there's a bunch of unexploded ammunition down there in the water, and they were all picking up shells to take home as trophies, and we had to tell them, "Man, you don't want to take that thing like that. That could explode on you." But we were there and lived in this old airplane hangar for a few days, and I remember I was guarding a geisha house one day, and we were walking up and down the street, and we were all been made shore patrol, and we were guarding geisha houses and places where guys weren't supposed to go, and and walking the streets like policemen, and we did that a few days, and then they sent a bunch of us to Nagasaki. And that's where I spent the rest of about 9 months later, I was shipped out of there, headed for home.
How many days after the bomb did you get to Nagasaki?
Oh, about 3 weeks.
Anything special happen in Nagasaki?
No, I was more afraid to. We were living in an old former kamikaze base, barracks, and before that it was a leprosarium.
Hmm.
And I've been in the communications. We ought to have to stretch all the loudspeaker lines and the
Right.
telephone lines never up in the attic, and I was up there, and I was more afraid of getting leprosy than I was of anything else. But
You made it through Iwo Jima, and now you're worried about getting leprosy.
yeah, those were scary days for me because I just was. But
Leave
I-
it to Mother Green.